This killer's story begins over 70 years ago. Gary Ridgway was born in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1949.
The middle of three sons, to a ferocious, domineering mother and a bus driver father. His parents argued relentlessly, but he always took his mother's side. The mother was to become the most signal figure in his life.
The other thing about his mother is this. Up till roughly age 13, he had a bedwetting problem, and his mother would deal with his problem by personally washing his genitalia. This kind of behavior is very unusual. It is going to inevitably lead to a confusion about sexuality. And indeed, Ridgway admitted to his psychiatrist that he had lustful sexual feelings towards his mother.
As a teenager, he was obsessed with sex.
By the time he reaches adolescence, Ridgway has got what could only be described as a supercharged sex drive. He wants sex all the time, everywhere, regardless.
Ridgway struggled in school and was held back 2 grades.
There's also problems with his peers. He's always the slow one, he's always a bit behind. So always being the odd one out, not having that sense of belonging. And one of the things that Gary Ridgway learned to protect himself was to be violent, was to instill fear in other people, because that was a kind of armor.
Age 16, Ridgway viciously attacked a 6-year-old boy.
It actually stabs the boy seriously in the liver, and the child survives. This episode hints that there is some completely psychotic, disorganized process going on just below the surface with him.
Ridgway was not identified, so was never charged with the assault. In 1969, he joined the US Navy. The following year, Ridgway married his first wife, but his mother was still ever present in their relationship.
This is a woman who was so dominating that even after he got married, his mother would decide what clothes to buy him and that he should wear.
Soon after getting married, Ridgway was deployed on a tour with the US Navy. Unable to contain his sexual urges, he regularly visited prostitutes.
Wherever he was, he visited sex workers. And in several cases, he contracted venereal diseases, which he was angry about, and which he held against the sex workers. And I think that just fed on itself, that anger, that hatred, that depersonalization of these women.
When Ridgway returned the following year, he found his wife had been dating another man. The couple divorced in January 1972. A year later, in 1973, he found a new wife. While he was married, Ridgway also found a new outlet for his passions.
Ridgway suddenly became something of a religious zealot, a Bible thumper. He would proselytize. It's kind of fervent, almost out of proportion, his interest in religion.
Religion plays a very interesting role for some subset of serial killers. The problem is that religion, psychology, medications, none of them have proven more powerful than the urge to kill in a serial killer.
After his first murder, Ridgway went on a frenzied killing spree. In just 5 weeks, he picked up 5 more women from the SeaTac Strip. By August the 15th, 1982, Ridgway had kidnapped, raped, and callously killed all of them. He dumped one of the bodies near a creek and 4 in the Green River. The defiled bodies were found in clusters along the banks.
The homicides started in, 1982, and the publicity that was being received or broadcasted by the news media, every member of this county, the state of Washington, the United States, were aware of these murders.
In August of 1982, a task force was formed to catch the so-called Green River Killer. the team scoured the area and made a series of grim discoveries.
This was the site of 3 of the victims. There were 2 upstream a ways, pushed into the water and weighted down with rocks. A 3rd one was left on the bank in the tall grass. I assumed that he thought he was going to get caught. He saw somebody and dumped the body and ran because she didn't make it in the water.
When the call came out, we would have dispatched the task force. We would set up a perimeter. We'd line up and we would clip every blade of grass, looking for any hairs, fibers, or anything else that might be of investigative value.
Analyzing the bodies, detectives quickly determined a pattern in the killer's behavior. He would head to the SeaTac strip after work. There he would pick up a sex worker from the side of the road. The women did not know it, but then their fate was sealed.
His method of operation, his MO, was taking these women to wooded, isolated areas, sometimes along riverbanks, along stretches of road, so that he would see any approaching vehicles, give him plenty of time to avoid being seen.
Ridgway would park and persuade the women to get out of his truck. Then he would attack.
Each victim was manually strangulated, and the fact that he admitted to the pleasure he sought out of watching the life seep out of each of the bodies, I feel that is horrific.
What is more, Ridgway's victims had no idea it was coming.
Ridgway strangled many of his victims from behind. It gives him, first of all, the element of surprise. It reduces the likelihood they can effectively fight back against him. In those few seconds before his victims became unconscious, they would be shocked, they would be struggling to breathe, they would be in pain, they may be trying to fight back. In about 10 seconds, somebody will be unconscious and unable to respond to you.
He started off strangling with his hands, but increasingly they put up a fight. It bruised his arms, and he didn't want to have to explain that to his friends or to his son. And so he started using ligatures, because it meant he didn't have to put his hands on their throat.
By the end of the summer of 1982, Ridgway had kidnapped, murdered, and then raped 9 young women. It would take 14 more years and a breakthrough in technology, but the saliva-soaked gauze with the killer's DNA sealed in promised to reveal the true identity of the Green River Killer. Seattle, Washington State, 2001. Since 1982, the serial killer had taken at least 48 young lives with impunity. But thanks to groundbreaking advances in forensic technology at the turn of the 21st century, the net was finally closing in on the man next door, 52-year-old Gary Ridgway.
Arguably the most prolific serial killer the United States has ever seen, outranking even Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer. He looks inoffensive, but is in fact dreadful, a man of extraordinary evil.
At the Washington State Crime Labs in 2001, Dr. Beverly Himmick took advantage of a new technique in forensic technology.
It takes a breakthrough in DNA technology to finally trap Gary Ridgway, a man who's been getting away with murder for close to 20 years.
Called short tandem repeat or STR DNA testing, the detectives re-examined the saliva that was captured in the gauze they'd asked Ridgway to submit 14 years earlier.
When we started the investigation, DNA was just coming on the scene in the United States. And the thing that we finally got Ridgway on, the DNA, had been submitted 2, 3, 4 times previous for processing, but it kept coming back inconclusive. It wasn't until 2001 we got a positive hit on him.
As they were gathering evidence against him in the autumn of 2001, Gary Ridgway suddenly re-emerged.
Whilst Gary Ridgway might have stopped killing for a period of time, he has not completely turned around his behaviour or his lifestyle. In 2001, he is picked up by a police officer as he is soliciting a sex worker.
He makes the mistake of picking up an undercover police officer whom he mistakes for a prostitute, and that led to his arrest.
Alerted to the incident and concerned that he might kill again, law enforcement decided to act. On November the 30th, 2001, they arrested Gary Ridgway.
It was unbelievable. I think at that point, people didn't believe that he would ever be caught. It was absolutely stunning and gratifying.